So today we're going to talk about circumference and arc length. So yesterday we hit circumference, and now we're going to add arc length into the mixture. So what is the difference? Circumference, remember, is the length all the way around the circle. Okay, so if I was to measure more or less the perimeter all the way around the circle, that's the circumference. Arc length, on the other hand, is if I just wanted, say, the length just from like this section right there. So maybe that little section of the circle that I've highlighted, if I just need that length there, that's the arc length, okay? Just one little length of the circle there, okay? All right, so these are your formulas you're going to be using. Of course, the circumference formulas. Today, we'll be doing arc length, and it's not so much a formula, it's a proportion. Okay? So a proportion, remember, is just two ratios that are set next to each other, and they're equal. Okay? So when we solve for this, we're going to cross multiply in order to find this. Okay? And the way this is set up is arc length, that's a portion of the circle, just a little section of it, over the circumference. Remember, circumference is the total all the way around the circle. So think of that, just a little part of it over the total circle. Then arc measure will be just the little amount of degrees over the total. What's the total degrees of a circle? 360. So that's why 360 is on the bottom. That's the total measure of the angle all the way around the circle. And the arc measure will be the part of it, okay? And then, of course, degrees to radians, radians to degrees. All right, so on this first one, it says, find circumference with a radius of 9 centimeters. So I need to find circumference, so obviously I'm going to use circumference formulas. I have two of them. Which one should I use on this one? 2 pi r, why? Because they gave me a radius, right? If they gave me a radius, then I want to use the circumference formula that has radius in it. So 2 pi r. And literally just plug it in. 2 pi. And your r, they said the radius is 9. So times 9. Plug that in your calculator. And what did y'all get for that to the first decimal place? 56.5. So that's just how I find circumference when I'm given the radius, right? Okay. All right, next one says find the diameter with a circumference of 26 m. So we're going to use the circumference formula again. Which one should I use on this one? Pi times d. And I'm looking for diameter, so the circumference they told me is 26. So I'm plugging 26 in for the circumference. I don't know what the diameter is, so I'm just going to leave it as d, because I don't know what it is. Okay? Just leave it as the variable. Now I need to solve for it. So I'm going to say, I'm going to divide that pi to get d by itself. And in your calculator, you do 26 divided by pi. Round to the first decimal place and tell me what you get. So 8.3. Find the arc length of arc AB. Is arc AB a major or minor arc? Minor. How do you know it's a minor arc? Good, it's only 2 letters. Remember, arcs, when you name them, if they're only 2 letters, they're minor. If they're 3 letters, they're major. And what is a minor? It's less than how much? 180. Major is more than 180, and a semicircle is 180 exactly, okay? So I'm looking for this arc right here from A to B. So you can put an X there, just because that's what I'm looking for. It says find the arc length. I'm looking for that distance from A to B along that edge of that circle there. And what I'm going to use is the proportion. So I'm going to write it out, arc length. Over circumference is equal to arc measure over the total of 360. All right, so let's plug this in. The arc length. Well, we just said we don't know what the arc length is, right? That's what we're looking for. So since we don't know what it is, let's plug in x for it. X. I don't know what that is. Now the circumference. Did they tell me what the circumference was? No. But can I find it? How?
Put those two things in. That 150.
Not the 150, but
18.
the 18. What is the 18?
The radius.
The radius. So I'm going to come over here to the side and I'm going to find the circumference. And circumference is equal to 2 pi r. Move this up. Circumference is equal to 2 pi r. And my r is 18, right? Circumference is equal to 2 pi times 18. What do y'all get when y'all put that in your calculator? Yeah, so it ended up being 113.1. And that's my circumference. So I'm literally going to plug, once I find it, I can plug it in for this and get 113.1. So remember, that was circumference, because that was what was on bottom, and I replaced circumference with how much it equaled, 113.1. Next is the arc measure. Anybody want to guess what the arc measure is? 150. Yeah, because it's how much is the measure that I'm looking for. Like I'm looking for AB here. So AB is 150 degrees. So it's going to be 150 degrees over the total of 360. Now remember, when you do plug these in, you're always going to have, you can only have one of them have an X on it. Okay? Like when you plug everything in, because you can only solve for one X. So make sure there's only one that has it. Now, because there's a proportion, let's cross multiply. Cross multiply. I get 360 times X is equal to 150 times 113.1. All right, I can't do anything with the 360X yet. 150 times 113.1. What do y'all get with that? 16,965? Even?
Yeah.
Okay.
It says 0.0.
0.0, so yeah, so it works out even. Okay. Now what's my last step here to solve for X? Divide it by the 360. And X is equal to what here? To the first decimal place. 47.1. Okay. All right, now I need to see, what does the X represent? Like, what did we plug X in for? The arc length, right? So what I'm going to say here is arc length is equal to that 47.1, right? And what did they tell me to find in the instructions? The arc length. So we found it, right? Okay. So we're good. That's it on that one. Reason being is some of them, they're not like, you're going to find things and it's not exactly what you're looking for, what they're asking for, okay? So make sure you always know what that X represents. All right, this one says find the radius of circle J. So let's use our proportion. We have arc length. I'm going to shorten it a little bit. Arc length over circumference. Arc measure over 360. All right, what did y'all put in for the arc length? Let's see if anybody got it. Good, 19.71, because the length there is just 19.71. Do I know the circumference? Did they give me the circumference of the whole circle? No. Do I have a way of finding it? Why can't I find the circumference on this one?
You know already.
Yeah, they didn't give me the radius. Okay. So what should I put there for C? X, because I don't know what it is. All right. And like I said, that you cannot find circumference on this because they didn't give us a radius or diameter. Then what's the arc measure? 55 degrees over the 360. So when we cross multiply, 360 times 19.71, what'd y'all get? 7,000. Even? Or point? point 0.
I got 7,095.6.
7,095.6. Very good. So 7,095.6. And it's equal to 55x, right? And then you divide that 55. What did x equal when you divided it? 129.0. Okay.
Does that matter, the point 0?
On that one, the point 0 does matter because you had to round it to get it.
You can round it too.
All right, so x here equaled 129.0. What did my x represent here? Circumference. So I'm going to write circumference equals 129.0 because if we went back to the top, we plugged in x for c. Am I looking for circumference on this though? No, what are we looking for? Radius. Okay, so this is step 1. If you want to label this is step 1. Now it just goes back to like what we were learning yesterday with the circumference. So step 2 would be find the radius. And you're simply going to use the circumference formula. Circumference is equal to 2 pi r. Like I taught y'all when we talked about circumference. Plug in the 129 for circumference. Yeah, we're going to divide by 2 pi to get r by itself. Now, this is where a lot of people will make a mistake if you're not careful. You have to use parentheses on that 2 pi on the bottom. And make note in your notes, use parentheses. If you don't use parentheses, it'll give you a really large number. And should your radius be smaller or bigger than your circumference? Smaller. So if you get a bigger number than your circumference, you know you did it wrong. So in your calculator, do 129 divided by parentheses 2 pi and close it. So now my r is equal to 20.5. And that's what we're looking for is the radius. So now we're finished. All right, so this one says find the perimeter of the region. So remember, perimeter, guys, is just all the way around the figure. So if I look here, I have like a square, like 3 sides of a square. How do I know those 3 sides are congruent with each other? Yeah, they got the little tick marks on them, right? So I know those 3 are congruent. And then I have this section here from here to there. What kind of shape is that? Yeah, semicircle. Okay. So it's half the circle. So if that's a half the circle, I know that this right here is going to be the radius. And if that's the radius, then I know this other side here is going to be how much?
4.
It's going to be 4 as well. Okay. Now the total, the diameter will be 8. Okay. So 4 for that radius. So the 2 4s equal 8. So then, if that whole thing is 8, what's this side here going to be? 8 as well. And then the top and the bottom are 8. So we did most of it without even having to hardly do any math, right? But now I need to find the length of that semicircle. So the first step I want to do here, find length of the semicircle. So we'll do arc length, right? So I'm going to do the arc length over the circumference is equal to the arc measure over 360. So my arc length, what am I going to plug in for it?
8.
What's that?
8.
All right, yeah, just a variable, right? So we'll say x because we don't know it. That's what we're trying to find, that length of that semicircle. Circumference, how can I find that? So circumference is c equals 2 pi r. We already said my r was 4. So it's 2 pi times 4. So the circumference is 25.1. Bless you. All right, now I need to find the arc measure. What do y'all think the arc measure is going to be on this semicircle? Yeah, 180. Because it's 180 degrees for half the circle, right? So the arc measure is going to be 180 and then over 360. And now we just cross multiply and solve for x. So 360x is equal to 180 times 25.1. So 360x equals 4,500, how much? 19?
18.
Oh, 18? Even? Okay. And then the last step, of course, is we're going to divide it by the 360. 12.6. Okay. So that's my arc length of that circle, semicircle. So this semicircle is 12.6 right there. So step 2, just finding perimeter. Perimeter is equal to 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 12.6. Ethan, what do you get when you do that? 36.6. Okay. There's the perimeter. So convert 45 degrees to radians. So I'm going from degrees to radians. So 45 degrees times, class, what did it say? What am I going to multiply the degrees by? Pi over 180 or 180 over pi? Yeah, pi over 180. So 45 degrees times pi over 180. All right, so I'm going to multiply straight across 45 times pi. Now on these, we're not going to actually multiply the pi out. I'm just going to say, treat it like a variable. So if it was like 45 times x, it'd just say 45x. So it's going to be 45 pi. The 180, there's nothing to multiply it with, so it's over 180. So we get 45 pi divided by 180. Now the last step we do here is you want to reduce 45 over 180. Okay? So put that in your calculator. 45 divided by 180. Math, enter. What do you get? Yeah, 1 over 4. Okay? But do not put the pi in there when you reduce it. So it's going to be 1. Bring your pi over. Pi over 4. And then on top, that 1 in the pi, I don't need to keep the 1, right? Because that's just 1 times pi. So it's just going to be pi over 4 is going to be my answer. Next one, convert 3 pi over 2 radians to degrees. So now I'm doing radians to degrees. So what am I going to multiply it by? Pi over 180 or 180 over pi? 180 over pi. The easiest way to remember this is if you start out with no pi, like on the top one, you're going to multiply it times the pi on the top. If you start out with a pi on top, you're going to multiply times a pi on the bottom. Okay? Let's multiply straight across. So 3 pi times 180, bring my pi over. What's 3 times 180 give me? 540. Then on the bottom, 2 times pi, we're just going to write what? 2 pi. All right, what happens to those 2 pi's if I got a pi on the top and pi on the bottom? Yeah, they're just going to cancel out, right? And then I do 540 divided by 2, which is? That's as simple as it can get. And we're going 2 degrees, so we're going to degree symbol. And that's it on that. How far does the tire travel in 1 and 15 revolutions? So what you want to take note is that we want to find the distance all the way around the tire. What's that called, the distance all the way around the circle? Circumference. So if I have the circumference of the circle, or the tire, and a revolution means like it spins one whole time. Okay? So if I spin this one whole time, that distance should be the same distance as the what? The circumference, right? So think about it. I find the circumference. That'll tell me the distance all the way around the circle. Then if I spin that tire one whole time, it should travel that same distance as the circumference. So basically, the way I think about it is if like I took my hands and I made a circle above my head, and then I stretched out my arms straight across, that's the same distance, right? From the end of my fingers to the other end is the length. So we said 1 revolution is equal to the circumference. So 1 revolution is equal to the circumference. Okay. So step 1 would be to find the circumference then. Okay. First thing is I need to figure out what the diameter is. How do I find the diameter on this one?
Add them together.
Yeah, just add those 3 numbers because the diameter is from edge to edge through the center. So I'm going to add that 5.5 plus 15 plus 5.5. What do you get when you do that? 26. And then circumference is equal to pi times diameter. So circumference is equal to pi times 26. Giovanni, do pi times 26. Tell me what you get.
81.7.
Yeah, because it has 6 cents.
Okay, so 81.7. All right, and then step 2 is 15 revolutions. Okay, we're going to solve for it. So we said 1 revolution is equal to 81.7 inches, right? Because 1 revolution is the same as the circumference. So then I'll say for 15 revolutions, what am I going to do? Yeah, multiply it by 15. So I'm going to take that 81.7 times by 15. 1,200 and what? 0.5 and inches. So 15 revolutions is equal to 1225.5 inches.